Hey podcast world, this is Ramon Sanchez. I'm a licensed clinical social worker out in California and host of Destigmatize, a roundtable mental health podcast for professionals I know, members of my community, and some of my friends can discuss topics worth destigmatizing. For this episode, I've invited the stand-up comedian and host of a widely followed borderline podcast disorder, Levy Lupu. Levy is a truly unique voice in the mental health space, bringing his darkly honest comedic style to a topic many shy away from. Originally from Romania, Levy moved to the United Kingdom at 17, and his comedy often stems from dealing with identity, being the underdog, and navigating life as an outsider. He's managed to channel his difficult life experiences, including his personal struggles with borderline personality disorder, into material that one reviewer even called silly, likable, and even heartwarming. By using his platform to openly talk about his messy and weird parts of life, Levy is a powerful example of how vulnerability can lead to destigmatization. And now, here's our episode. Destigmatized Mental Health Podcast, Season 4, Episode 10. What is borderline personality disorder? With comedian Levy Lupu. Levy, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Ramon. How's it going?
Oh man, life is great, man. I really can't complain. I'm pretty stoked to have this conversation with you, man. Before we even get started on talking about the episode, where can people find you? How can people connect with you?
My social media handle pretty much everywhere, and my YouTube channel it's at comedylevy32, and my DMs are open. I also have a website, levylupu.com, and I have like inquiry section there. And the reason why I'm actually saying that the DMs are open and have that inquiry thing on the email is because if anybody wants to get in touch, they can. Like most of my DMs are usually from people who are just like, oh, I love that video, or I love that episode, or I have very lovely, beautiful conversations because people that I don't expect to message me.
Right.
And that's very cool, and I love that. So if anyone wants to reach out, again, Instagram. I don't use TikTok. I post stuff, but I'm not active on TikTok.
So the best way to get in contact with you is either through your website or Instagram.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how you and I connected. You started following me, and I was like, oh hell yeah, this is cool. And then I started watching your content, and I was like, man, this is great. I'm gonna go ahead and just send a DM to this guy, see what's up. And sure as shit, you got back to me.
Yeah, well, you see, because again, like I think there are lots of things that you can hate about social media and the age that we live in. One of the nice things about it is that you can actually, get to speak with people from, even I got to speak with people from the other side of London. I would have not gotten to speak otherwise, but then I get moments like this, where I get to speak with people from a different country that I would have not, like the likelihood of us like walking past each other on the street is, given the fact that we live in different cities, it's quite low.
Yeah, no,
so
absolutely,
you gotta take, again, like I guess in my point is that on the bright side of the social media and the age that we live in, you can actually get to connect with a lot of cool people, and I'm here for it, basically.
Yeah, love it, man. Levy, your story is fascinating. Yeah, you moved from Romania to the United Kingdom. You were working different jobs, and now you're doing stand-up, which you say is where you finally fit in best. Could you share a little bit about your journey and ultimately what led you to addressing mental health so publicly, especially in your work?
Yeah, so I was born in Romania, and then at I think it was like 16, I ended up moving to England. I was meant to be here for a couple of months, but things didn't work out the way I wanted to. So I ended up just staying and working. It was hard for maybe like a year. I was doing cash in hand jobs, and I was just kind of like, barely making enough to like pay my rent. I used to live on £3 a day. That was my day budget for like food and drinks, basically, for a while. And then things kind of like picked up from there because I managed to go from that construction job into a warehouse, and then from the warehouse into a bakery. That's where things kind of like picked up, and it went quite well. I managed to get my, like almost, 6-7 months later, I moved out. I managed to basically get into like better jobs. It went from that to getting to work I worked at the Genius Bar in an Apple store for a few years. And basically through lockdown, I struggled with my mental health like since I was 13. I think the first time I've had life-ending thoughts was at 13. Like the first time I tried or like I considered ending my life was at 13 years old. So again, it's been a long journey.
Right.
However, I've never talked about it, never opened up, never done anything until I was what, 22, something like that. So when basically when the lockdown hit, you're like on your own. And then I used to live with my best friend. Now I used to share a flat together in an apartment in a lovely place in Manchester. And he ended up leaving the country because he got furloughed. He lost his job basically.
Yeah.
And now I was like without my best friend at the time. I was just on my own, and I just went. I think that's the moment when I kind of felt like I'm losing it, and I ended up. It was the first time in my life when I picked up the phone and called. I don't know if you have it in America. Here it's called the Samaritans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
so I called.
it's like a crisis hotline type of.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like a crisis hotline. So I called the crisis hotline for the first time, and I talked with this lady, like just crying. I was barely talking after that. I was mostly crying. And then she was like, "Oh, why? I think you should try and see someone on like a regular basis." And
Mhm.
I ended up seeing a therapist because I went through my private GP, got a therapist. And then as I was speaking with my therapist goes like, "Hey, I think you should start writing down your thoughts because everything now it sounds like you're kind of just word vomiting." And I was like, interesting. Okay. And then as I started journaling because of that, I was like, you know what? Some of these memories, although quite traumatic, they're funny.
Yeah.
Like some of this stuff, like if you obviously you can look at it in the sense of, oh my God, I can't believe I've gone through that. But then
Yeah.
in the other hand, you're like, this is
Yeah. I always tell that to my clients too. Like I'll be like, when it sucks right now, but you're gonna laugh about this shit at some point.
yeah, exactly. And this is the thing where it's, you know, it's yeah, and then you start writing it, and it's like, okay, so then you're thinking, let me see if I can write it in a less traumatizing way, more of a, set up punchline way. And then you're trying to see, how it works. And yeah, that's where it started. Basically, I started writing like that. Then again, it was still during lockdown, so there wasn't any live comedy. So I had to wait. But I was so looking forward to the world opening up again. So I can go and do open mics. I can go and do, I can try my jokes. And obviously, some of them didn't work. Some of them were. This is a thing that I've noticed sometimes with comedians where, I don't believe that, comedy is therapy. I think therapy is therapy and comedy is comedy. Obviously, they are intertwined, but they are not the same.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say by that is that sometimes you see people just actually like just share something very traumatic without having that sort of setup punchline. So obviously that happens. No, it's not good comedy wise, and you that's how you need to learn how to write it in such a way that you're not just trauma dumping on others. And again, I guess I was at fault with that. I had my times, and I was like, oh, okay. And then you just go back to the writing and you try to do better. And, like now I talk about, I think most of the stories that I have, it's either like how my mom lied to me. I have, unfortunately, I lost my parents. So, but I get to have some jokes that get an incredible response.
Right.
And that's only, sorry, go on.
At first it becomes, I feel bad for you. I feel sympathy and empathy for you losing your parents. And then you talk the crap for the room, and then it becomes funny.
Exactly. Because I feel like it's almost, I write it or like I want to do it in such a way that look, it's happened, and it's my story. Like, just listen to this because, they weren't perfect people. Like, I love them to bits, and I can't stress this enough.
Right.
But some, like, they did, can I swear in this, by the way?
Please. Fuck yeah.
Okay, yeah. So like they did some fucked up shit, and I want you to know that, and I want you to laugh with me because even like I often obviously use the line of like if they were here they would be laughing. I think my dad would be annoyed that I'm telling you about this,
Oh yeah.
but then he would be laughing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm Mexican. I come from Mexican descent. So, when my parents found out that I was in a podcast, and of course it goes outside of the culture, they're like, "What the fuck are you doing? What are you thinking about telling our laundry out there?" Oh, fuck,
Well,
it's part of it.
this is the sorry, go on.
No, yeah, I'm just saying it's part of the culture. Like you guys, fuck, that's on you.
This is the amazing stuff where it's like, I think, and again, I don't know what it was like for you, but for us, I feel like, being Romanian of like Jewish descent, you have all this like bottling up for years. And you're just like, just shut up, put your head down, just shut up, put your head down, shut up, put your head down. And then now sometimes I think, like my nephew and my niece, and although I don't talk with my sister that often, but even when I talk with her sometimes, she's like, do you think mom would be cool with this? And I'm like, I think ultimately she would be cool with this. Like ultimately she'd be like, you know what? I'm proud of you because she was the only one in many occasions that was like, she said that I should do whatever I want. And I should do if it feels right, I should do it. And I should find whatever brings me joy and happiness.
Yeah,
So, I think she would like it, but I don't think she would like me, telling a room full of people. And I'm talking sometimes about 20 people. Sometimes I've done the joke in front of like 500 people. And I told the story of like my mom lying to me about Chernobyl and stuff like that, And you see, like, I think she would feel like, "Oh, why are you telling people this? Shut up. This is family
yeah,
business." And
yeah,
again, but yeah, I love it, and I wouldn't. I feel like I've never. I have this. Sorry, to come back to your original question. I feel like doing comedy is, I've never done brain surgery. I've never done any job like that. But I feel like with comedy is the closest I've ever been to feeling like I love it. Like even when I hate it, I love it.
yeah. No,
Even yeah.
that's exactly why I did this podcast, because it's so worth destigmatizing all of the shit that our generations before us got wrong. The generations before us is probably the reason why this world is the way that it is, to be honest with you. Because we're
Yeah.
like in this like weird hybrid of well, we love our past, we love our ancestors, we love our culture, but then this world is the way that this is because we don't know the distinction between or we're figuring out what is right, but then we have a lot of our past that follows us. And I mean, you're in the UK, you're lucky. You don't have to deal with the shit that Americans have to deal with.
I mean, you see, you say that, but then now I feel like, oh my God, I'm in the UK. Like you have to deal with the stuff that's happening in the UK. And then on top of that, you're kind of like, you're a Romanian kid in the UK, and you have all these things. So I feel like wherever you are, like whatever again, and like that's obviously, I guess that's my perception. I'm quite curious to hear your more about yours, but like with me, I'm like, it's not easy. I think whatever it is, and it's kind of, I feel like yeah, before me, everyone, even when they were, even like when my grandparents and like my parents and their grandparents, they stayed in Romania for most of the time, and they accepted to be treated, second class citizens. They accept all that because they were kind of like, just put your head down and grind and shut up. And
Right.
then here comes, me. And then when my mom was like, if you have the chance to go, go. And then I remember at one time actually before she passed away, I was like, I feel like I want to come back to Romania. And she was like, why would you? She was like, because my mom wanted, in some occasions, my mom was the one who wanted to leave Romania and she didn't because, she was in love or because then she had me and she felt like
Hmm.
she couldn't just live on her own, obviously. And then yeah, with me, she was just like, no, just go. And then obviously again, I came to England and I see the I guess the struggles of living in England. Sometimes obviously I do feel lucky because I feel like, even if I have to give about a bit of like, I have to like give to respond in like some sarcastic ways to my family back in Romania, I can, because worst comes to worst, I can just like hang out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have to. But then I feel bad for like my sister, for example, because she's the one who's there. She's the one who has to put up with stuff. Which again, I do love I love my family, but you do see this sort of generational trauma. And it's kind of like getting to the point where everything piles up, and then you have your own shit that you
Yeah.
have to deal with. And it's kind of like, oh, where do I start now? Because I have all these boxes that I haven't even gone through because my family just kind of like, just I inherited this, and then I have
Yeah.
to put my stuff on top of it. And now I'm like, soon I will have children. And then what am I going to do? Like, am I going to pile up my boxes to them?
Right. Yeah. And I think it's good that you're, as we call it, airing out your dirty laundry, because you're now creating a new topic of it's okay to go ahead and talk about mental health for the next generation and kind of keep it cool. For us, it's like, and I talked about like being in America as a Mexican American. It's like, even though we're Mexican American, our mental health is impacted a lot. Just even from the political climate. So when we talk about, that there may be some differences, man, I would rather be a Romanian singing God Save the King instead of being a Mexican American in the United States, dealing with Donald Trump. I'll take your life any day.
But you see, this is, well, that's quite, again, interesting, because you see, now from my perspective, I'm like, when I was meant to move to London, I actually wanted to come to America.
Snap.
And I only didn't
Yeah,
come
you're not missing out,
because,
man.
but you see, this is the thing. From here, I'm like, oh, it's so much better being in America. Like, obviously, you have your own struggles, and it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But again, because I think part of us, so that is a part of me, because I have to, I'll just talk on my behalf. A part of me longs to what I don't have, and a part of me is like, no, I'd love to go to America, because I know there was a bit where there were Romanians. It was like slightly easier for Romanians to get in America. You say this thing about like God save the king, but it's kind of like, I feel like the political class and the royal family in England gave
Oh,
up
yeah.
on Jews and Romanians, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like I do. We still have to sing. We still sing "God Save the King" like after every Saturday after service. But a part of me is like, I don't think if he would have to save me, he wouldn't. I don't, like I feel like it's a very one-sided relationship right now.
Yeah,
So,
no, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And then
yeah, again, you see, sorry, go on.
there's the comedy aspect of what we talk about, but then there's the reality, right? I joke around regarding, what we're talking about, but then the reality is, man, on both ends, both nations, these individuals they're not gonna look out for, for anyone outside of themselves. And anyone that does deal with, with mental health issues, borderline personality disorders, then we get into the notion of what it means to go ahead, and now we get into what it is to be from another nation as well as a different religion. Man, it's a done deal, right?
You see, with stuff like this, I don't think it should matter, because like ultimately, I feel like if you have borderline, like if you have Romanian borderline personality disorder, if you have Jewish borderline personality disorder, if you have English borderline personality disorder, you have borderline personality disorder.
Exactly.
Like if you have insomnia, you don't have, Mexican insomnia or American insomnia. You have insomnia.
Yeah, we'll start dancing. We'll start dancing in the middle of the night because we're insomniac. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the thing. It's kind of like, okay, perhaps, like, I guess in my respect, I'd be like, oh, maybe some of the, the trauma, it's inflicted by things that have happened, in Romania. Okay, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
And with stuff like this, when it's about, like, I guess, being empathetic and listening to people, it shouldn't matter. Like, again, look, as much as I want to say that because I know I do, I agree, and I self-identity, I agree, and that we are different and stuff like that. In some respects, I will take that, and I'm like, okay, cool, because that's the truth, that's how it works. But in this, especially when you say, when you have to, like, go and see a doctor, or when you have to speak about because I actually, what, coming back to something that you said about, like, the airing the dirty laundry, I actually feel like, because I'm airing my own dirty laundry, when I talk about, because I talk about my own mental health, like, I'm not, I'm not talking about other people, I'm kind of like, what I do is I just tell you how I feel, rather than just being like passive aggressive for the next 2 weeks, and
Right.
if you're thinking in the grand scheme of things, which one would you have?
I think, yeah, it's interesting, right, to even take that into consideration, because of course everyone would answer that 100% differently.
Yeah. So that's why it's kind of like, because sometimes, I just don't understand it, and it's just, it shouldn't matter, because it does, like, because it doesn't matter.
It shouldn't, right? But then we have individuals that do feel like it does matter because of the fact that you are from a different, and that's the saddest part, and that's why this podcast exists, because honestly, it doesn't matter where you're from. We're having conversations literally across time zones to go ahead and recognize that we're the same. A diagnosis doesn't define an individual, but and that's kind of goes into my next question. You have described yourself as a full-time fish out of water. Does
Yes.
borderline personality disorder feel like the ultimate punchline to that feeling? How does that sense of being an outsider, which you lean into your comedy, connect with the struggles of living with a mental health condition?
Sorry. No, I don't think I don't think that the diagnosis or like my mental health is, again, obviously it has some sort of like influence on that, of course, because it like I do have this sort of like broken emotions thermometer, but the full time fish out of water is more just to say that I always feel, and I have a track record of being very out of place, and sometimes by choices I make. So I guess perhaps there you could say it's influenced a lot by the BPD, maybe, because again I have a much like more addictive personality. Sometimes, take risks that I shouldn't take.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, yeah, it's influential. The diagnosis is influential to it. But ultimately, the reason why I use that it's actually because someone said that to me. I did a gig, and I did a comedy show, and even as a comedian, I usually like dress up in a suit. And I was the only guy on the lineup dressed in a suit, and he was like, "What are you doing?" It sounds like you kind of you're still thinking about Seinfeld. You're still like I'm catching up. I sometimes use these references where even with my accent, I sound a lot more Italian than Romanian, and I feel like as I migrated from Romania to England, my accent is also migrating, and now is in Italy. In a couple of years, it's going to be in France, and then it's slowly going to come across the water. Like I'm always behind, almost like someone who's watching Friends now and takes the references for like today's time.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. Yeah. At some point, your accent is going to go ahead and cross over the channel.
Yeah, I just wake up one morning and I'll just speak like the King's English, and they'll be like, okay, cool, I'm here now.
Levy, you're getting there. You mentioned in this episode about that the apartment. What do you guys call it?
What do you mean?
Yeah, you called an apartment there.
Flat.
A flat. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. It's coming. It's on its
I know,
way.
but I hate this word. I hate the word flat. It's
The flat.
so such a horrible. I feel like sometimes people like British people make fun of like American English.
Yeah.
I genuinely think the British English is the problem
Hey
because
man.
these words like it's almost like if you say, I don't know, oh, I bought an apartment, sounds so much nicer than I bought a flat. A
Yeah.
flat tire, a flat what? I don't know. I just hate the word flat. That's why actually I force myself to just say apartment.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
I've missed in this. Yeah, I hate that word because it means almost like it's sad. It's like I live in a flat. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're homeless. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about the addictive traits, which is something that's really common about amongst individuals that are diagnosed with the borderline personality disorder. And you've been very open about your struggles with gambling and alcohol addiction, which started for you at the age of 13. Knowing what you know now about borderline personality disorder, the intense emotions, the impulsivity, do you ever look back at your younger self and think, "Oh, that's why I'm such a liability," or you know, you know, when it comes down to the borderline diagnosis, has that changed your views about your past substance and your behavioral challenges?
I think it made me, but again, it might be a combination of just growing up. It made me, again, like growing up plus getting the diagnosis to just, learn to accept myself and love myself and be forgiving with myself. I'd say that's as far as it goes because, yeah, I think like looking back, and I guess, yeah, looking back as a kid, and I think actually, you know what, it's not just that, it's the therapy itself because like I was going through a really rough time. Like my parents started splitting up. I was involved into some, let's say questionable activities, because that's how I made the money for the gambling, and for the drinking because it wasn't cheap or free. And I think therapy helped out a lot because like talking about it and kind of being like, okay, you know what? Obviously, I've made some choices myself, but
Hmm.
then you see, oh, why was I being so impulsive? Like I remember sometimes I would just go in the bookies and I'd be like, I used to put 2 4 6 on dogs, on dog races, and I would just put like a combination of the dog number 2, 4, or 6 to win, and it would be just because I felt like I have to do that. Like I would do that, and then I would wait for that race to finish. And then while after that race finishes and the next one starts, I will look at the board again and actually start to make some calculated decisions.
Hmm.
Sometimes I would just be like, okay, if the time is like 12:34, for example, I had to bet on like over 2.5 goals in a game or under 2.5 goals. It's stuff like this where I would just be like, I just have to do it. I don't know why. I just feel like I have to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you forgive your younger version of yourself for doing that?
Uh, yeah, because you know what, I gotta. There were some times when I was. I mean, this is the thing that this is the funnest and the happiest I've been at that age. Like that's the truth. At
Yeah.
the time when I was, I didn't have to think about the possibility of like my parents splitting up. I didn't have to worry about anything. Was when I
Hmm.
was either gambling or drinking. On those seconds when I was waiting for the result, or as I was out with my mates drinking and like just passing out and stuff like that. That was the funnest moment I was living in those times, and that was probably the only moments when I felt happy.
Yeah.
So, I don't necessarily hate myself for it. I hate myself for things that I've done, perhaps when I was hungover, or like I hate myself for, but also actually the thing is with the gambling, because again, I was a child, I was living it with my parents. Like all the money that I was making was my money. I never cared about the money. Like,
Yeah.
because I feel like if I were like, for example, when I struggled with gambling as an adult and as someone who just managed to like get his life together, that's when oh, I need to be careful because, if I waste this money, I won't make rent, or if I waste this money, I can't save up. If I, for the things I have to buy. But when I was a kid, it was kind of like, I remember if I left when the bookies shop would close, if I left with money, I would
Hmm.
I would go and drink it anyway. If I left without money, I'd just go home and sleep.
Yeah.
That was it.
You're the host of a podcast called Borderline Podcast Disorder, where you're chatting about the messy, weird, and wonderful parts of life. What inspired you to start this podcast centered around borderline personality disorder? And since BPD makes you terrified or having fears of abandonment, is the podcast secretly just a brilliant and elaborate way that people will just stay in your life, at least on, an hour a week?
I love these questions, but
I appreciate
beautiful
you, man.
questions. The way it started is because I got diagnosed with BPD. I was going through, and I don't know if you might ask me, or like you might have it somewhere written down. I was going through this therapy thing called dialectical behavioral therapy, which is like
DBT?
a
Yep.
course, yeah, DBT, which is like over the one that I did. It was like over 20 weeks,
Yeah. It's
and
usually on average about a year-long program, a year-long commitment.
yes, so I was going through that, and I had another episode of you know yeah, just basically I had another really bad episode basically whilst I was in the program. I think that week we were talking about like doing something meaningful, or like doing something that gives us, yeah, that gives us meaning and purpose. That's it, purpose, not meaning, purpose.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like I love comedy, but the thing with comedy was that I've noticed, for example, I've only managed to do jokes about like my mom only after I came to peace with the fact that my mom is gone.
Right.
And now because I was still going through, I couldn't make jokes about BPD because I was like, it just felt too real. Basically, the jokes weren't funny. It were just stories. But then I thought, I still want to talk about it. I still want to. I want to kind of, like I started the podcast because I felt I'm not ready yet to talk about BPD on stage, and also the things that I will sometimes talk about, either in the intro or the outro or the even like on the conversations with my guests. they are just, again, although we might put like a funny twist to it because we might make a joke about it, it's just not funny, like comedy funny.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I need a different. It's almost like I felt like, okay, I need to have this sort of no, yeah, avenue, or I don't know, just like two different voices. I have the comedic voice, I have the stand-up guy, and then I can also be the here's my journey about BPD guy.
Yeah.
And here is like the serious stuff. Here is the like if I'm gonna tell you truly about how I felt the past week.
Right.
There's not gonna be a punchline at the end. I can be honest, and I don't have to, like, if people want to come and see me for my comedy, they can see me for my comedy. And if people want to see me for the BPD and like living with it story, then that's here is your version of it.
Right. Because, I mean, and again, of course, and I do hope, and I know that that I'm joking around with the questions that I'm asking, being a dick and saying, oh, is this your way of getting people to go ahead and stick around for an hour?
Oh, I think it
No,
was beautiful.
no, I appreciate that. And I know that you know that, but it goes back to exactly what you said in the beginning of this podcast. Therapy is therapy and comedy is comedy. And you could intertwine the two, which is exactly what I'm doing. And I'm showing that it can happen. However, when you have the serious conversations of destigmatizing, and that's the purpose of this podcast, of destigmatizing mental health and living with such a debilitating personality disorder, there really is no joke, when it comes down to that. And yes, of course it is funny. There are situations that are funny, but it's debilitating, man. And I can't even imagine the things that you and so many millions of people go through with this diagnosis. So the fact that you are putting your journey out there so publicly, I give you so much kudos for being able to do that and creating your own, audio journey of what this is and how your journey, dude. I'm sure that people come to you telling you that you have saved them in so many ways.
Not that many, by the way. So if anyone's listening, if you feel like I saved your life, let me know because I would love to. No, but I do. The thing is, I did get a few messages like that, and I was like, this is great because it's kind of like, like it's almost, I don't want to. I hate to have. I think one of the cringiest things I find, and I do struggle with still. Although I have no, as you said it, and by the way, thank you so much for the very kind words. I appreciate it a lot, and I feel like actually, what, because of people like you, actually, with who work in destigmatizing mental health, we're getting there, and it's gonna get better, and we are on the right path. But yeah, coming back to the messages, yeah, one of the things I struggle with even now is this sort of like, savior or leader, because it's kind of like, oh, I here is my journey, and I want for people to follow me. I feel every time I have to say that at the end of an episode, where I'm like, oh, please follow me, or like, that's the cringiest moment usually of the week, because I don't necessarily, because I don't long for that. It's almost like, because actually, no, do you know what the reality is? The reason why I put it out there, it's for me already.
Yeah.
Like I would love to say that, oh yeah, I do it for everybody else. But
Yeah.
truthfully, it's for me. Like, again, like that's how I feel. Obviously, I'm sure there are other people who don't do it for themselves. But again, now I'm just talking about myself. And yeah, I do it for myself. I do it because, I also sometimes think that people that I've met in my life, they must have fought at times, especially when I was struggling with, like either, alcohol abuse, or, I had a period when I was, dabbling around with like drugs. And, they must have thought this kid is so weird.
Mm.
And now it's almost like, okay, but I guess this is why, like, again, it's not an excuse, but all I'm trying to say is I took the information that I've been given, which is that I have BPD, and I'm working with it. And you can also see the progress, which is quite nice because, again, some of the messages that I get are actually people who are like, oh, I've saw, like, I've listened to a message, like, sorry, I've listened to an episode of your podcast like almost 2 years ago when I got started, and now, listening to it again and seeing it grow and seeing you grow, and like I get to talk about, doing comedy gigs in basements of pubs to now doing my own shows. And I've got some actually super exciting news to share, hopefully very soon with everyone. And, people are like, wow, this is really cool because you can see it. You can almost see you can basically see it going up. So again, I
Yeah.
would, thank you. Like, I do appreciate it. And I feel like also, I think if more people would have done it before me, I wouldn't have done it myself. As in like being so open about it.
Yeah. But there's the
Yeah.
reality, man. The fact that I've gone 4 seasons without talking to someone about BPD and their personal journey, honestly, man, it speaks volumes about what you're doing, man. So I'm glad you reached that, or I'm glad that you started, that you liked a comment or, made a comment and on one of my posts, man, and that I got to find you. So I'm super thankful about that. When it comes down to your comedy, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Your comedy is described as low energy, dark, and honest. How do you decide where the lines between dark comedy that is therapeutic and dark comedy that might reinforce a stigma or misunderstanding about mental illness? How do you go about that?
I have to go a bit technical. Is that okay?
Please.
But okay, because again, as technical as someone who's never done a comedy course or anything like it. But the way I write it and the way I think about it is, writing a joke or like the setup, it has to be the one where you build up the tension. And if again, say like if the tension is here, it's going up here, then the release has to go back down precisely what it left off. So it has to equal, it has to be worth it. So the way I write and the way I think it is that, again, if I'm about to say something that is going to build up a lot of tension, then the punchline has got to be really good. Because otherwise it's not a joke. Because if I'm going to say something that is going to build up the tension, but then the release is only halfway through, no good. Not good enough for me to be on a set. Because again, you want to get that stress release. You want for people to go like, oh, where is he going? Where is he going? Where is he going? Brilliant. I love this.
Yeah.
So that's when I write, this is what I think about. This is my main focus. And this is why sometimes actually coming back about the therapy is therapy and comedy is not therapy, or yeah, comedy is not therapy, is that sometimes when I see comedians kind of like just building a lot of tension and then either not releasing it at all and it becomes just like a TED talk, or then the punchline being quite weak and not releasing all the tension, that's when I actually, I get quite like, oh, this is not good, you should do better. So yeah, that's my logic basically. That's my train of thought. It's kind of like you stress that whatever you almost like whatever you put the audience through is gotta be worth it at the end, because ultimately they come to laugh. People come to a comedy show because they want to forget about what's happening outside. They want a break from what's happening outside.
What advice
Sorry. Go.
Yeah, just kind of going on what you're saying right now, what advice would you give someone who is struggling with mental illness but feels that they need to hide it, that because they're going to your show, that they want to go ahead and forget? The person at sometimes maybe feel that they're pretending to know what the vibe is, or they're afraid to be seen, as the confused Romanian guy in a suit. What would you tell these guys that they just go to forget?
If you're coming to forget about your struggles, you're coming to forget about, or to just kind of ignore it for an hour, that's good. There is, there is something healthy into it. But then at the end of the hour or on your journey home, you've gotta basically like put a plan in place for, are you gonna see a therapist? If you're not speaking to a therapist, are you gonna, maybe catch up with a friend, maybe message a friend on your way home and be like, hey, can we have a coffee tomorrow? Or can we have a phone call tomorrow evening after work? Or and speak, because I feel like it's you can't think that, oh, just because I'm going to ignore it is not there anymore, but it's almost like that still has to be done in a way that is responsible, like you're choosing to do that, that you know what the other choices are, that okay, but then I'm going to address it. Like now I can be, for this evening everything is beautiful, everything is great, but if I struggle, I need to find a solution for this struggle. As someone if you're ignoring, or you're choosing to take some time off to switch off from whatever is happening outside, that's okay, as long as you know that as long as you're aware of what you've done, and you're also thinking that, but I still have these things to address. I still have these things to do.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would consider, from like the public eye, they would consider you and what you have gone through maybe like a perfect recovery story. As someone who hosts a podcast and does comedy, how do you manage the pressure to perform or be consistently on, even when you're having a very difficult mental health day when it comes down to the symptoms that come from the borderline personality disorder?
I feel like that's what I love. It's almost as if how it doesn't matter how bad the day is. It doesn't matter how I feel about anything else, how worked up I feel, or sometimes, in some days when I just feel flat, I feel like nothing. It's almost like, oh, okay, it's time to record the podcast episode, and I get in the mood for that. And then if it's about doing comedy, it's the exact same thing. I feel like it might sound wildly big-headed, but I feel like, I'm here to do a service for the people who are watching me,
Yeah.
and like I'm here at service, and it's kind of like, again, actually it goes back to something that I think we touched on earlier, where I was like, when I go in front of an audience, it's not their I feel like it's not their fault that I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
So why would they have to be why do they have to be the ones who have to pay for that?
Right.
That's how I feel about it. Because it's kind of like, I don't know, if someone, I'm always, I am so wildly, grateful to the people who come and watch comedy, to the people who listen to my podcast, because you have so many ways to spend your time these days,
Yeah.
and yet you choose to give an hour to this guy.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
Then that's why, to me, I feel like, as much as I'd like to think that, I'm an artist. I have, like, people must love what I do because I am, these generations. I don't know. You name some very fancy artists. I'd love to think like that, but I don't. I feel like I'm pretty much, I pretty much a jester, and I'm going in front of the king, and the audience is the king, and it's my job to entertain you, and it's because I love it so much. I find joy when I entertain people.
Yeah.
It's almost like it pays me back when I hear the laughter. It pays me back already straight away. It doesn't matter anything else doesn't matter anymore. And then after the show, I can be like, oh God, I can't believe, like, I have those, like, bills to pay, and I'm behind on doing that, or oh, I need to rebook my appointment for whatever tomorrow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying. The reality of things is that, and I think what you're describing even right now is, essentially mindfulness, which is, and again, you were talking about DBT and how you did that for 22 weeks. DBT is the gold standard treatment for borderline personality disorder. It really focuses on, heavily on mindfulness, being in the present, being in the moment. And, when you're talking about that, and I really resonate with that because, for me, this podcast, this is just a fun passion project that I've just invested way too much money on. And now it's like, well, fuck. And now I'm committed. I even bought damn stickers all of a sudden, and that makes, all of a sudden I'm fucking more official. But yeah, no, while we're recording this podcast, I took a 10-mile hike, which is in British English terms, that's 16 kilometers. I did a 16-kilometer hike yesterday and I'm exhausted, but I'm showing up for what I committed to, but not just what I committed to. It's my word. My word means everything. I committed to you to doing this episode as you committed to me. But on top of that, it is just that this is what I'm passionate about. I am happy to have these conversations every day, regardless of how I'm feeling, whether I'm exhausted, whether I'm sober, whether I'm drunk, with friends, with enemies. I am happy to have these conversations when it comes out about mental health because I'm passionate about it, man.
So you see, this is the thing. I feel like it's almost as if, and I don't know about you, but I almost feel like, yeah, there is a different sort of, like, energy tank that I have.
Yeah.
It's almost like I have one energy tank that's, for say the shit that I don't really want to do, and then there is another one that's for my loved ones and for what I love, which is comedy, and for again like for mental health and for again like basically things that I'm passionate about and things that I want to put my energy into. And you see, this is the again, yeah, it feels quite different. It feels like again every time and also I'd say luckily. I feel like because of although if you would have asked me like a year and a half ago, I would have said that I don't like mindfulness. I hate mindfulness. I can't meditate, which is the truth. I can't meditate.
Yeah, neither can
But
I.
because of DBT, I've learned how to be mindful in other ways. And basically, what I was going to try and what I was going to say is that in the last 6, 7 months, I actually haven't struggled. I even on the bad days, I haven't struggled at all to adjust my feelings because of the things that I've learned, and also like the books that I read. I've got a little bit, although I'm not like. Nah, I am religious. Yeah, I do believe in because I was gonna say I'm not spiritual, but I like I'm not religious, but I am religious, and I feel like that's actually yeah, and that guy is gonna like preach, but I'm not preaching. All I'm saying is it
Preach,
did
man.
help a little.
Yeah,
No,
fuck
it's
it.
just that it did help. It helped a lot because it's kind of like what it's for the better. Like bad things are still gonna turn good, and believing that ultimately good things will happen, and
Yeah.
the fact that if you haven't been given what you wanted, then it means that you it wasn't either the time or it wasn't actually something that's gonna help you in the long run and stuff like this. And these things have helped me out a lot.
Yeah. No, this is your hour, man. So you preach whatever the fuck you want to preach. This is
Okay,
you.
well, you can listen to my. We're gonna do a communal prayer now. I'm not there yet.
That's on your next episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder.
You know what the thing is, because I don't know if you do you like basketball?
Oh yeah, dude, I'm a Celtics fan for sure.
Well, the thing is actually, well, you might, but Amari Stoudemire, he's like an Orthodox Jew now.
What the? Okay, I
Oh
didn't know.
man,
I
I
didn't know that.
love it so much. Like you would go on his Instagram and you just see him like with the talit on, so like the prayer shawl, and starting doing this sort of like movement that you do when you pray, and you go like, okay, so the Bible verse of the day today is this, and then he will start, like doing the prayer before reading the Torah, and then he's gonna do, and I'm here for it. If he found it, what's my excuse?
Yeah, no, exactly, man.
So like this is the kind of stuff where I just love it. But again, I'm not there yet. Like, I'd love to say that I am not.
Hey,
But yeah, by the way, Amari Stoudemire is probably I think he's literally like meta world peace. As in
he
like he kept
for
his
for
promise to,
for the Jewish community.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess he's your
And
guys'
also like if,
he's your guys'
sorry, go
token at
on.
this point.
I guess at least in like the basketball world, because like
Yeah.
you remember, he was an aggressive guy. Like you would
Oh,
be scared.
yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, no, he's scary. He was the basketball equivalent of Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, I don't know if you watch
Yeah,
American football.
yeah,
That
I
guy's
do.
wild. That guy's my hero. I'm like, I love
Really
Marshawn Lynch. Oh yeah, that dude. I love Marshawn Lynch.
interesting.
Yeah, but
How come the Celtics? Sorry.
the Celtics, man, I became a fan, a big fan of basketball in 2008. So there were just a lot of
Right.
personalities in that 2008 Celtics team. You have
Yes. Yes.
Rajon Rondo, you have Baby Davis, you have Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce. There were a bunch of characters, Ray Allen. So there was a bunch of characters, man. And for some reason, that was like a time that I was kind of discovering myself and who I was. And I have a passion for sports. I'm a huge Yankees fan in baseball. But then I started
Same.
I started dabbling into different sports. When I was a kid, my biggest like passion was American football. But then it's like now I started like tapping into other ones. But for some reason, man, it was that '08 Celtics teams that got me. And then I started
That
like
was a
learning about,
beautiful team.
yeah, and I started learning about the history of the Celtics. Then you learn about this white guy that just talks shit with the name of Larry Bird. And I'm like, all right, dude, like I'm here for it. Let's go. So then it's just, you start getting into the history and it's a lot of fun, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I get it. And you know what? Actually, that 2008 team, I remember I used to play NBA Live on the PC and also on my PlayStation. three, I think, or
Yeah.
two, one or the other. It was beautiful, amazing team.
Yeah, for sure, man. For our listeners who may only know borderline personality disorder from television or social media stereotypes, what borderline personality disorder from your lived humane perspective, what does it feel like to manage BPD on a daily basis?
Oh man, you know what? Because I was actually thinking about this. The only times I heard about BPD before I got diagnosed, and I started like reading into it, it was on Criminal Minds. Because
Yep.
every serial killer had BPD.
Yeah.
No, when I got it, I was like, when I got it, as if that's when I got diagnosed, I was like, oh no.
Shit, I'm gonna go kill someone now.
Yeah, like genuinely, I was so scared for a while. I remember I was just crying, and not my fiance now, at the time girlfriend. I was crying in front of her, and she was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, I think I'm gonna become, I was like, I think you have to leave. It's like, what if I'm gonna like kill you, and then I'm gonna kill like a bunch of other women, and then I'm gonna like, I don't know, eat you, and like, where does this stop? Like how, yeah, how can I like, I don't know what to do. And that obviously now we're laughing about it because, you know it sounds insane, but at the time, that's how I felt. I was like, I think I remember telling her, I was like, I think you're in danger.
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah.
it's like Twilight. When there is a scene in Twilight, and he's like, I think you're in danger. That was me.
Yeah.
Like I'm becoming a werewolf now.
So yeah, so that was like a common misconception as well, right? That you were going to change, a full moon would happen, and all of a sudden, you would have this conversation with your girlfriend at the time, be like, "Hey, what are you craving for dinner?" Oh, you. All of a sudden, that, but that's a misconception. That's not really what it is.
It's not. It's not. It's really not. But yeah, that's where we started. That's where the bar was when I first got the diagnosis. Then, the thing is, and again, actually, I must say to anyone who even remotely thinks that might have it, speak to a doctor. Honestly, once I got that, was like hand to heart. My worst days with BPD were the ones so far. Again, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but so far, my worst days with BPD were the days before I got diagnosed.
Yeah. Yeah, because at that point you had no idea what was going on. You just knew that you were feeling something.
Exactly.
Usually individuals that are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, they have a fear of abandonment, and they usually have unstable relationships due to that irrational fear. It usually results in a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors. Was there someone that you would speak to publicly about this? Maybe it was your girlfriend, or you said that you spoke to a doctor, but it took a while for you to even get there. Was there anyone that you would talk to?
What do you mean? In what respects?
Yeah, in the sense of like, well, again, individuals that have BPD, one of the big symptoms, there is a lot of irrational thoughts,
Yes.
fears of abandonment, that I'm no longer, that you're going to leave me at any point, that I'm going to
Yes.
leave you at some point, or I'm going to do something to mess things up, and because all the person really wants is love in a sense,
Yeah,
but they
I
fear.
do. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, hey, go ahead.
Sorry, go on, go on.
No, yeah, it was just
Oh,
that. It was just that there was this fear of, oh, well, at some point people are going to leave me because I'm going to mess things up. Is that something that you thought about?
yeah, of course. I think, again, I've done it a lot of times, like with friends, with like romantic relationship, friendship relationships, with, I think, even with my parents sometimes. And once again, ever since I got diagnosed, I've only been in one relationship since, and I'm very grateful because I love my fiance. I think she's, the love of my life and the future mother of my children. And we do speak about it. I think I probably, I'm not exaggerating now. I think maybe every 2 days
Mm-hmm.
I ask her if she's gonna leave me.
Yeah.
Like, that's that's the truth. Like, I think I haven't asked her yet today, but I did ask her yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I think at one point I was like, "Oh, do you think, like, are you happy? Do you think that, but you see, this is the thing. I feel like in one other hand, the Levy from a few years ago would have just been like, which I've done it before, but I would like end relationships, but I would just like cut people off without, just because I would be like, oh, something's off. and I'm sure something's gonna happen. So rather than them cutting me off, I'm gonna cut them off. But
Right.
now it almost feels like what I'd like to think what I've managed to do with it is that I actually managed to set up, like almost like a checkpoint when you play a game.
Mhm.
And it's almost like I use these moments to set up checkpoints. I use these moments to make sure that, if there is actually something that I haven't done, well during the week, there is something that I could do better to make my fiance's life easier, to actually just make her, see how much she means to me and stuff like that. I use that as a checkup point to see where we're at. And if
Mhm.
there is something that I would need to improve. And then sometimes actually she does ask me, she goes like, oh, why is it something that I've done that makes you feel like, I'm about to leave you? And then I can go like, oh yeah, you said thanks. And I don't know if in America you use X at the end of messages. And I'm like, you only used one X at the end of the message.
You didn't add a
And that,
no afterwards?
yeah. And I'm like, that to me sounds like you have bought tickets to fly away to a different country.
Levy, man, this has been such an incredibly rich and comprehensive discussion, man. Covering everything from your personal journey with BPD to just your powerful use of comedy and the destigmatization of it, man. And I'm here for it, man. I really appreciate it. As we wrap things up, is there something that I didn't ask you? Or even is there a piece of advice that you would want our listeners to go ahead and take away about destigmatizing mental health? And if there is, what would it be?
This is so from things that you didn't ask me, no, because I don't know. I don't know. On the things that I would actually tell people, I talk about like the destigmatizing is, mental health, it's a huge thing. But I think when you get started, don't treat it like a big thing. Just say something small. Just start with a little bit, Just don't, just start. Just talk. Just, call a mate. Just be like, "Oh, are you okay?" And then instead of going like, "Yeah, I'm okay. How are you?" Just be like, "No, no, I'm going through this," or, "I've been thinking about that." That's how it's almost like don't take it that serious. Don't worry about it. It's not even a contest to see who. Also, like there is no contest, no contest to see who, you know, gets fixed in quotation first.
Yeah.
There's no contest for it. Like just talk, just see how you feel. And also, I'd say even once you talked about it and you felt better, expect to have days when you're not gonna feel good again. Because I feel like sometimes it also there is a bit of, and I don't know from your experience, but from my experience, I've noticed that this sort of like mental health struggles, they seem as if they are like a very linear, thing where it's kind of like, oh, you're good now, great. You're never gonna be sad again. And then I actually feel like then once when something happens and you get triggered or like something goes wrong that second time, that actually feels worse than the first time.
Right.
Because people almost didn't expect it because they thought, oh, but I thought that's it. I thought that I already said, how I felt 6 months ago. And I'd say, yeah, get ready for that as well and allow it, allow for that to happen
Embrace it.
and embrace it. Exactly. Embrace it. And, I also feel like, sorry, actually, one of the things I want to say as well is, with the BPD, I use this diagnosis not as an excuse to, but as an empowerment. Like I know I've got it. I know I've got BPD, so I know that I've got to do these like extra things to make sure that I do the right decision. Or I say the right thing. I send the right email. I, I don't flip off the wrong person or whatever,
Right.
and that's okay. Like again, don't allow for your life to get worse or to do things that you're gonna regret just because, oh, I've got BPD. It's
Right.
to me, the way I treat it, it's more the case of, because I've got BPD, I'm gonna think twice before I send that email, or I'm gonna think twice before I'm, about to react to something. And then usually, you know what, after you fought twice, you're not gonna want to do the thing that you thought you're gonna do in the first place.
Right. Because at
And
that point, you're in a different state of mind compared to where you were even in that moment.
exactly. And then you don't have to regret about the things that you've done and be like, oh, I can't believe I've done this. It's more of a, I'm mindful. I know that I have.
Hmm.
Give me a second. I need to figure out what I want to do next. Yeah, it worked wonders for me, and I hope it's going to help other people as well.
Yeah. Levy, where can people find you once again?
Where can people find me? I'm most active on Instagram, Comedy Levy 32. I also have a YouTube channel that's also Comedy Levy 32, and the name of the podcast that I have is Borderline Podcast Disorder by Levy Lupu, and it's available on all podcast streaming platforms.
That was Destigmatized Mental Health Podcast, Season 4, Episode 10, highlighting borderline personality disorder with Levy Lupu. You can find this episode and past episodes of Destigmatized Mental Health Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Levy, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, Ramon. Look after yourself, brother. And if you ever come to London, don't be a stranger. Let's say in the United Kingdom.
No, I'll definitely hold that up. I'll hold you accountable for that.
Please do.